Hello everyone, welcome to EduHUS. In today's video, we are going to continue with the first chapter, Crop Production and Management of Class 8, and we will be taking in detail the manures and fertilizers. We'll be knowing their importance and the differences between them, and we'll be also talking about the different methods of irrigation. Let's begin with the positive thought. The thought says that patience, persistence, and perspiration makes an unbeatable combination for success. Correct? So if you want success, these three qualities are very important: patience, persistence, and perspiration. Okay, so whenever we think about plants, we always say that how do plants get their nutrients? Correct? All the plants grow in the soil. Some plants we grow artificially as a crops. So these are the few ways in which the plants get their nutrients from. The first one is like they get from the decomposition of organic matter in the soil. The organic matter which is present in the soil, when it gets decomposed by the microorganisms in the soil, the nutrients are released, and those nutrients are absorbed by the plant roots and used up in making their food and for their growth. Second is by nitrogen fixing bacteria which are also present in the soil. Those nitrogen fixing bacteria also absorb the nitrogen from the atmosphere and provide it to the plant. They first use it in their making of some compounds for themselves, and that is also available to the plants. The next point is that plant also get nutrients from the manure which is artificially supplied to the plants by the farmers, and we also get it from the fertilizers which we also provide artificially. And sometimes the plant can also get their nutrients from the leguminous plants which are grown with the crop. The leguminous plants which are grown with the crop. So the leguminous plants again have nitrogen fixing bacteria in their roots, and those bacteria can fix the atmospheric nitrogen. That means they can take the nitrogen from the air and make some compounds from them, nitrogenous compounds, and those compounds will also be available to the plant for their use. So these are some of the ways in which plants get nutrients which are required for their growth and basic purposes. Now let's know about what is the importance of manure for the plants. Fine. So before we know the importance, let's know what is manure. So whenever we talk about manure, we should understand that why we say that manure is very important for plants, what are its basic qualities, what it is made from. So manure is what? Manure is an organic matter. The meaning of organic matter is the organic matter is always derived from a living organism. That means either from plant or from animals. So manure is an organic matter which is obtained from the dead and decaying plants and animal matter. Correct? Whenever the animal and plant matter will be decaying by the action of those insects, microbes in the soil, and then manure will be formed. Fine. So what does manure contains? The manure can contain the cow and cattle dung. It contains the dead fallen leaves which the people can collect and use it when making manure. Correct? It can also can be made from the agricultural waste and the leftover plant parts. It can also be made from the leftover food of cattle. For example, the farmer has buffaloes and cows, so farmer has to provide the fodder to the animals, and if some fodder part of that is left, so that can also be used in making the manure. And similarly here also the agricultural waste, the stock of the plant part that is left, that can also be used for making the manure. Fine. The next point, understand this, you can see the image of a area where the farmer is spraying the manure. It can also be done manually, where the manure can be transported using the tractor, and then it can be spread in the whole field. Correct? Now let's know about how the manure is basically made. So the process of making manure is, first in the earth the huge pits are made. Okay, huge pits are made. And then what is the next? The dead plants, the plant parts, the fallen leaves, animal waste, vegetables waste, that all is put into that pit. Correct? And the next thing what is done? The pit is covered. Either you can put a small soil layer over it or something, and then that waste is allowed to decompose, or in common terms we can say it is allowed to rot. During this time, we have to understand that insects will also be working on it, worms will also be working on it, and it is a combined effort of the microbes, the earth worms, and the insect, that this matter will be finally decomposed to form the compost or manure. Fine. Again, this can be, sometimes we call it vermicompost. If we are using artificially we are providing the lot of worms into making of compost, then it is called as vermicompost also. Fine. So this is also the process of manure, compost, vermicompost. These are more or less same things. There's a little bit difference in making of them. Correct? The next thing comes is the fertilizers. Now, what are fertilizers? There's a big difference between manure and fertilizers. We discussed that manure are organic matter. That means they are derived from the living organisms. Correct? Whereas the fertilizers are man-made. That means we are making it in the factories, and that's why we are calling it inorganic. The meaning of inorganic is it is not organic. Fine. It is basically made from some compounds in the factories. The common fertilizers which are used are urea, potash, and NPK, that is nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, like that. So these are some of the nutrients which are artificially supplied to the plant with the help of fertilizers. That means we spread the fertilizers or supply it to the crop for its better growth. So for the plant, the manure and fertilizers both are important. But let's know the difference between the manure and fertilizers. So when we talk about difference between manure and fertilizers, these are the major differences which we can talk about. First, as we discussed, the manure is an organic substance and fertilizers are inorganic. That means they are not derived from the living organism. They are artificially made in the factories. Fine. When we talk about the manure, we say that they are biodegradable. The meaning of biodegradable is biologically degraded. That means by the action of biological agents, that means those insects, worms, and that one, it can be degraded. Whatever the organisms which will be present in soil, they will decompose and convert that manure into nutrients. So it is degraded or correct? So that's why it is called as biodegradable. Whereas when we talk about fertilizers, we say that they are non-biodegradable. The meaning of this is that they cannot be degraded by the action of biological agents. And that's why we are calling it non-biodegradable. Fine. And this causes a problem. How? That we will discuss. Correct. When we talk about this manure, we are saying that this manure is bulkier. It becomes heavy. It becomes a huge area is required for making the manure and then storing it or putting it. Again, the transport is required because it is bulkier. The larger vehicle is required. Fine. Whereas when we talk about fertilizers are compact. They are in the form of either crystals or in the form of powdered substance, and they are easy to transport. Correct. Next thing is the manure contains. Now here we have to take care that why the farmers supply the fertilizers to the crop. Because the more important thing with the manure is the manure has less ready to absorb nutrients at a time. That means manure cannot provide so many nutrients to the whole crop. Now, because here the microorganisms are working for breaking down or decomposing that matter into nutrients. So it will take time. So slowly, some amount of nutrients keep on getting released into the soil. But here with the fertilizers has, because it is inorganic chemicals which we have made in factories. So here when we supply to the crop, ready to absorb nutrients are there. Like it is somewhat like that. Whenever you fall sick, then doctor gives the drip which contains glucose and some of the minerals in it. So that providing fertilizers is somewhat like getting that drip and providing the glucose and the minerals into our blood. Whereas eating food is quite similar to the manure. That's when you will eat food, then your body will digest it, then slowly the nutrients will reach into your body part, and then you will feel energetic to do work. So it is quite similar to that, but again, as we said, there are limitations and benefits of both the things. Now, when we talk about further manure points, it is environmentally friendly. Manure is environmentally friendly because it does not cause any type of pollution. Because if you remember, we have discussed here that this is biodegradable. Correct? And when we talk about the fertilizers are non-biodegradable. That means they cannot be broken down into the in the environment by action of those biological agents. Fine? And that's why we call it that they cause soil pollution and they can cause water pollution. So that's why they can cause harm to the environment. Now next is that manure provide humus to the soil. That means the organic matter. And how does this humus help? This support the growth of microorganisms and some other useful insects and other organisms in the soil. Whereas when we talk about the fertilizers do not provide any humus to the soil, and that's why it does not support the growth of those soil microorganisms. And this is a very disadvantage of using the fertilizers, because fertilizers change the chemical composition of the soil. Means that whatever the soil was earlier, before providing fertilizers, the soil changes, and in that soil in which good amount of or more amount of fertilizers are provided, that soil does not support the growth of, or these microorganisms cannot survive in that soil for a long time. So that soil become not so fertile over the time. At present, the farmer may be getting good yield, but over the time, that land its fertility will keep on getting reduced. So what we have to do? We have to use a combination of manure as well as fertilizers. And secondly, fertilizers should not be used in more amount. Correct? They should be used in a moderate amount. Correct? That is the thing we have to take care. Fine? Moving on further, there are several other techniques of improving the soil quality. What are those techniques? There are 3 techniques which we can discuss. The first one is fallow field. In that, what the farmer can do, that they can leave their field vacant or uncultivated for 1 season or 2 seasons. So what will happen? Because no crops are grown in that field, the microbes will break down the manure, and that the field will get time to become rich in nutrients again, or become fertile again. So that is one technique. Fallow field can be adopted by farmers. The second technique can be adopted is crop rotation. Fine. So what happens in this, when you are growing one type of crop again and again on that one piece of land, what happens, that that crop, for example, let it be wheat. If wheat is constantly grown on that same piece of land, then what happens? Then the soil become deficient in the nutrient which the wheat requires in more amount. So if I am constantly growing wheat for 2 years, 3 years, the 4th year the production will be very less. Correct? So what can be done? The crop rotation can be done. 1 year I have grown wheat, next year I can grow mustard, I can grow peas, or I can grow some other plants. Fine. So I can grow that crops in rotation. Fine. And the next one is the multiple cropping. Now, how does this multiple cropping help? Here we can do mixed cropping. Like for example, there are several techniques. What we can do in this? We can grow more than one type of plant in that piece of land. Like I can mix the wheat and the peas. So peas will be having the bacteria which will be in their roots, which will absorb the nitrogen. So that nitrogen will also be available to the wheat. So that is mixed cropping. Correct? And there are several other ways in which we can grow different types of crops together so that they can get advantage from each other. So these are some of the ways in which we can improve the quality of soil for better production. Now, the next thing which we have to take care whenever we are thinking about managing the crop properly, that is irrigation, because the rainfall in our country is very uneven, and that is a reason that many times we have to artificially supply the water to the crops. So what is irrigation? Irrigation is nothing but the process by which the amount of water is supplied to the crops, and that is what irrigation is. Now, irrigation has different methods. There were olden methods and there are new techniques, but like in olden ways we used to use motor, rehet, that techniques were used, but nowadays we should be using the sprinkler system and the drip irrigation system. Correct? Now these two are very useful in a way. Like in sprinkler system, what is done using this, you can see here there is a system of pipe. This is a pipe and there are some sprinklers on here and they are sprinkling the water here and there. So water is sprinkled in all the direction from the sprinkler. Okay? And this is the way the water can be supplied to the whole crop. Now what is the one thing here, this here is, this can be used on even land, correct, and uneven land also, but some water get wasted here because when we are sprinkling the water get fallen on the leaves also. So what water which will fall on the leaves, it will evaporate, correct. So that is one disadvantage with this technique, that we get some water get wasted in this technique also. The next one which we are talking about is the one which is used in the areas which are having good water scarcity. That means not good amount of water is available in those areas. Now what is done in this, as the word is indicating, drip, that means drop by drop. So what is done in this, you can see here also there is a system of pipes. These pipes are carrying the water, and from these pipes the water falls drop by drop here to the roots of those plants. So the roots of these plants are supplied water drop by drop. So here what is happening, the water is not getting wasted. The water will be completely absorbed by the roots of the plant and will be used in growth of the plant. Not more or a good amount of water is wasted. It will be mostly used up by the plant. So these are the two good techniques, but there's one limitation with drip irrigation, that because here the lot of piping system is there. So whenever there is an uneven land or when there is a hilly area, this method cannot be opted, but it is very efficient, correct, but it cannot be opted for uneven land. So that is one limitation which we have with the drip irrigation. Fine. For today I'm discussing this much. If you have any question, you can leave in the comment here, correct? And if you like the video, hit the like button. If you like the video, you can share it with your friends also. And you can subscribe to this channel because I will be constantly making the videos for the better understanding of your concepts. Thank you for watching. Thank you. Take care. Bye.